Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the big show? Hello? Huh. Empty studio. Aside from, what's this, a scented letter from Prince Blip? It's not time for perch nerds. What is this? Early access to development blog. Alright, the nitty-gritty dirt band on Tier 8. The Magic 8 Ball has been shaken and is providing answers, and the team down at KRKN Channel 5 News has analyzed what this says, and then the commentary has been loaded into my teleprompter. Everyone is getting a raise. Haha, very funny. You're all fired. But before we get into it, let me get the old commander and modules up on the big screen for what we're using. No surprise, full secondary build, maximum lulls, using Henry J. Hyde with the hippie shake and Haruna Matata. And while this, I think, is a pretty fun match, especially considering the fact that I'm doing a cruiser's job because I am contributing to the battleship problem, that is not what this is all about. This is about Tier 8 and the info we now have and what that means for a starch tuber such as yourself. First, let's cover the info that applies to all of these ships. They will require 300,000 XP to rank your Tier 7 ship to a Tier 8. Your Elite XP will auto-magically convert, so if you've already got that covered, you are good to go. At least as far as experience goes. Next, the cost. 25 million silver to buy that battle boat. A little higher than I was expecting, but honestly not that bad. There are no additional mod slots for Tier 8 ships, so you're looking at about 30 million for a fully ranked up Tier 8 ship. That is definitely a pretty penny, but we will come back to that. However, in relation to this particular channel, we're all set. I've got the silver and the XP for all the new ships, excluding the Tier 8 Japanese destroyer. I'm about 150,000 XP short on that, and girl, you know I'd do anything for love, but I won't do that. No, don't give me that look. Don't give me that. Fine, I will do that, but just for you guys. So let's talk the ships that are coming. First up, for the US&A, you're getting a 10 turret Montana called the Maine, and that's following the Iowa. Then we have the Buffalo, which follows the Baltimore and is very similar but with an extra turret. And lastly, the Alan Parsons project, Alan M. Sumner, which is more gearing than Fletcher. Now, both the Maine and Alan M. Sumner are unique to Legends. For Japan, we get the Izumo to follow the Amagi, think a triple turret in the front Japanese battleship. We get a Buki to follow Mogami, which honestly is almost exactly the same, but with better armor. And Yugamo to follow Kagero, which also is probably the least exciting ship of this batch. I don't know, I'm sure someone out there is excited by it, but let's just say there wasn't any particularly CC raising their hand with excitement on Discord that I saw wanting to cover that. Up next, Deutschland. Friedrich de Grosse follows Bismarck, which is like the guns from the Grosse Kurfürst, but put on a Bismarck, but with one less barrel per turret. Following Hipper, we have the Rune, which is definitely one of the ships I'm looking forward to, and I think most of the others. Think a Nürnberg has a Babby with a Hipper, and that is how a Babby Rune is formed. For destroyers, we have the Z46 following the Z23, obviously twice as good. Notably, the guns go back to 128s here and are in double barrel configurations, though with 2 turrets in the back and only 1 in the front. Lastly, we have the Ruskies. Sovietsky Soyuz follows the Vladivostok, which is going to be very, very similar, but with some upgraded armor in a few spots that will thwart more HE spam. We've got the Dmitry Donskoy following the Chapayev, notable in that it is technically a heavy cruiser now with 180mm guns, but don't expect that Talon penetration. It does have longer range torps, though we shall see if it gets any special Legends treatment, like maybe a 30mm bow, please. And lastly, the Delny, which follows the Tashkin, is frankly pretty darn similar to it. Now, I should mention here that we have gotten no look at any Legends treatments that these ships might be getting. So while we can base a lot of things off of the PC version specs, until we see the infographics, we don't know for sure. And sometimes we still don't know after seeing those infographics. Okay, just a few more things. To compensate for Tier 8 needing time to populate, the matchmaker for Legendary Tier matches will still be pulling in Tier 7 ships for the time being. The plan is for that to go away as soon as Tier 8 has a high enough population, and the devs expect that to be the update after this coming one. So while Tier 7 will still face legendary ships for now, they are planning to get rid of that as soon as possible. The Dervblurg also mentions that we will see Tier 8 campaign ships and probably Global XP ships, Bureau ships, Steel ships, and hold your breath, even the auction. Wait, we're not done. I'm sorry, didn't mean it. Well, they did say that. It is also expected that as new lines are added, we will see them have Tier 8 ships in early access. Great. I love early access. And of course, the question that you're all dying to know, legendary carriers win. Too damn soon, that's when. But yes, legendary tier carriers will be coming. And that is the Dervblurg. And now I have some questions and a few statements. First, let me say that I do think that this is all good, mostly. I do think that Tier 8 was desperately needed. It also should put an end to why can't we have 10 tier questions. I mean, we can now have every single ship on PC except for their Tier 1s, which no one would play anyway, and I guess super ships, but that's a whole different thing. I mean, they could always add those. Yikes. But let's actually look at Tier 8. 30 million for a fully maxed out ship, roughly. 23 million for a Tier 7. Who is this tier designed for? I'll tell you who it's not designed for. New players. And that's fine. How long do you think it will take most players to grind out the silver and XP for a Tier 8 ship? I bet it's quite some time, and it's funny because legendary tier ships were originally introduced as in-game content for long-term players, though at some point I recall hearing, well, we can't have too many legendary tier ships in the Bureau or it will confuse new players, and considering no legendary tier ship has ever been removed from the Bureau, I fail to see how it is avoiding any confusion for new players. But it would seem to me that Tier 8 is actually the in-game content for long-term players. You're going to grind that tier out all the way for the privilege to play in a match with people who waited their way to legendary tier. Look, I don't have stats of how many players there are or how many are out there sitting on hundreds of millions of silver and who will actually be the ones populating Tier 8, but I do have eyes and I have learned how to read, and it appears to me that a vocal portion of this player base detests legendary tier matches because they find the gameplay awful. And when I read this dev blog, I thought, great, the update after this one will finally provide legendary tier with its own separate matchmaker, finally. Now, as I mentioned, they did also say that Tier 8 will be flushed out with campaigns and potentially global XP ships, steel ships, etc., and that will no doubt turn Tier 8 into the Tier 7 of a couple months ago. People complaining they're losing silver despite doing 75,000 damage in a very good game. But for a while, Tier 8 is going to suck. You know you're going to be bottom tier to fill out legendary tier matches. Before long, you'll have legendary tier carriers to deal with. And you know the match itself is going to suck because adding Tier 8 helps to address a power balance between tiers of ships, but it doesn't do anything to address the flaming tire pit that is legendary tier gameplay. Lighten up, Francis. That is all speculation. You're right. You're right, that is just my fear talking there, and who knows, maybe it won't be that bad. Stick around for the second set, folks. It's entirely different than the first. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this one. A lot to digest here. And let's not forget, the real Perch Nerds are next week, and I am expecting a doozy, so fingers crossed. Anyway, I won't make you watch the rest of this one. Let's go ahead and jump to the end here. 2,531 XP for a good game, and me sinking 3 destroyers in my battleship like a good battleship player should do. And that's going to wrap it up for this one. If you're looking forward to Tier 8, give this video a like. If you don't need a Tier 8 ship because you already have the Legendary Tier ship, give it a dislike. Questions, comments, I really want to hear them down below. And if you want to get a look at all them new battle boats that come, think about hitting subscribe. Thanks for watching, folks. I will get back out there for another, and we will talk then.